So I'll keep this phone logged in during the. Oh, there we go. So I should be recording right now. Can someone verify if they see a recording somewhere?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So for MicroProfile 4.0, milestone 1 was released yesterday. I don't know if Martin's on the call, but thanks for doing the approval. Edwin's not on. Thanks for the review. Emily, thanks for the review. So we got the milestone 1 release out. So any questions about the milestone 1 release?
Great job to everyone. Great job to everyone. And I have to say, this is one of the first times we use the media for what we could call a smaller degree release without changing the website. John, follow up from yesterday's marketing MicroProfile call and just file a Git issue to enable a card to be created. And hopefully in the future, every API can have such a push via media. This release is going to go live every week until the end of October or October 4th. Hopefully by Q4, we can go into the main release 4.0. But in the meantime, we're going to remind everyone that this is happening, that this is available. Right, John? And thank you, what is it? Ryan, we're here. That's, we will add it to
Can I ask a question for John? Quick question. John, you pushed the M1 to Maven Central as well, right?
Should be there. I checked yesterday and it was already pushed out. So yeah, should be there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So with M1 out of the way, do we have any plans to do an M2?
I was afraid someone was going to ask that question.
Give us a break. Give us a break. Seriously.
Yeah, you know, let's play it by ear. Let's see how the working group discussions go, because the next one might end up being a candidate release, right? Depending on how things go.
Yeah.
So let's give ourselves like, 3 or 4 weeks for things to kind of progress, and then we can decide if we want to do a milestone or a candidate release.
Okay, I know that there are a couple of specs. They have a couple of bugs on TCKs that we're only finding out right now because of the implementations.
Right.
So those are going to require some updates.
I was thinking about this yesterday because the main reason we have the 4.0 M1 is because the config has 2.0 M1. I think in the next release, when we release to config 2.0 RC1, I think at that time, the MicroProfile 4.0 RC1 can be released. And then at the same time, include some other updated RC releases from other stack. And then gear towards the final release. I think this is kind of good, good road to, for the final release.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of drop off and turn down the volume here as I go from station to station at the high school. So I just wanted to kind of say thanks to everyone for the release, and when I get back home, I'll probably join in on the call.
Okay, no worries. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks everyone. And it's still recording.
Yeah,
so,
Roberto,
okay.
Roberto, can you make sure that you share a screen, please? And thank you for being the alternate for this call. You need to share the screen of the agenda, please. Thank you.
There you go. So I'll just gonna write here a couple of notes regarding the release, but we can move to other topics. So the next topic that we have is the marketing stuff. So this is not, just to make a clarification, this is not a meeting for full discussion in the working group. We'll get there. So we can discuss other things in the first half an hour. And if we have additional time, well, with the rest half an hour, we go with the working group. But if we finish before the half an hour, then we can dedicate everything for the working group. So marketing, Amelia and Ryan, do you want us to guide us through the website improvements that have been happening in the last couple of weeks?
Ryan, own it, please.
I guess I'm owning it then. All right. If you could pull up the ticket for that, it might be easiest to kind of
Is
go
this the one? Is this the one?
Go to the bottom. It was 2 weeks ago, so last call, we discussed how to format. If you go up a little bit, sorry. How if we right here, it's perfect. Down. There you go. The M3 or my MP3. There you go. Roberto, you're killing me.
I was just telling the Zoom.
It's okay. If you go down a tad bit, just the card, the picture below it. We discussed how we want to separate, or if we want to separate, how would we call it? I always forget the name of the
APIs.
Tower component tower. If we want to separate it in categories or not. And if someone wasn't on this call before, this is an image, an interactive image that would be on the homepage that would allow you to click on any of these links to go see more detailed content about it. You know, it's separated on what was updated in 3.3 and what didn't have changes, and then we would also add a color for what is new. But to push this forward and make it real, we kind of need to discuss it with the community, you guys, and decide and understand your thoughts on if we want to separate it in certain categories, or if you go lower down for me a little bit, Roberto, or do the traditional way of setting up as you've seen before in this kind of component tower.
And Ryan, I want to interject here and say that when the presentation for MicroProfile was created plus 4 years ago, we continue to use the same blocks with the 4 main being the core used by all the APIs. So this is the reasoning for the current format. And through the calls that are happening in the marketing side, there were suggestions that it would be ideal to separate the APIs. The concern is that some of the APIs collide. They are a mix between foundation and core. So there is better to none that match just one side of the equation. So it seems to me, I am a -1 on this for that matter, but definitely we need feedback on this because you know, without the feedback, we cannot finalize this side of the main page.
I'm a +1 on the on 3 groups. So because if we directly like dump all these blocks here, like it's a kind of when people see this is not like they cannot register straight away what they are. It's a lot like they don't have their like identity per se. But once you kind of divide loosely into 3 groups, and then you can see, okay, the top, all these top CDI, JSONB, JSONP, etc. These all from like Jakarta EE, and REST client is directly linked to the JAX-RS, and config is pretty used by other specifications. And you can see is kind of this is kind of the same thing, but once you put a divider, I mean, between them, and a lot of information can be convened. So when I see the top like image, and then compare when I see the bottom image, I can like register better, like this is foundation, operation, and cloud, and etc. So it's depending on what I'm doing. So I will kind of focus on the different MicroProfile specifications. Anyway, that is what yeah, my understanding and a suggestion.
Well, I'm not completely sure if I enjoy the first one, especially because it will be tricky to categorize each spec because it may, for instance, when you say job propagation is, I mean, of course, this can be changed, but it's going to be hard to find a good category for each thing, right? So when you have job propagation on cloud, does that really make sense? Do you think about job propagation when you're going to do cloud? It's not only about cloud, right? It can be used on non-cloud environments. And so
probably I would not give the heading cloud. I would say the kind of quality of service.
Yeah, so you know that's the tricky part, right? So to find the right category labels for that to actually work, right? Because then people are gonna have different ideas on which category each of the spec belongs to.
Yeah. One thing I'll point out, which is often missed in conversations like this, is that the effort to roll this out on Ryan's behalf is not terribly high, such that we could go with the least argumented, the least offensive, that's not the right word, but you know, the most agreeable image, and then work on the one that has the categories. Like he could totally roll out the second image, and while that's live on the site helping people, we could try to improve.
I am a +1 on that one. And I want to remind everyone, +2 years ago, there is a thread going on MicroProfile growing pains, which we started a document so that we could, through the document, finally assign each API in a different format that is understood. We need to retake that. And I believe that instead of wasting that time, that was plenty of it used for the growing pains, that we go with what we have and that we bring back that conversation so that the community of MicroProfile can be a part of the conversations as we have been doing for the last 2+ years, because this is a part of, this touches growing pains and it cannot be just pushed. Or because
so
it will.
I don't think it's to do with growing pains per se, because we are not check out any specification out of this platform, and we are not I mean adding any specification into this platform. So the main thing is kind of whether we want to make it a divide, like these specifications in the box into three smaller boxes. So that's the only thing, so that we can sell these kind of specifications.
And then yeah. Emily, who gets to decide? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think we should still work on coming up with some categories of some kind just to help people understand, because I do agree that just one big list of specifications without any guidance at all, you know, makes it so that people just have to do more work to digest our world. But I do think it will take some time to come up with categories that everyone likes.
Going back to Roberto's comment, how many more categories, because obviously you don't want to have like 20 categories, but his point about propagation could fit in another category that is not cloud. Is there any objection to listing it twice in categories?
Say that last part again. Sorry about it. I talked over you.
So JWT propagation, duet propagation, in this instance, it's listed in the cloud category. Roberto's comment is that it's not necessarily just related to cloud. So is there any objection to listing that API again in another category? Would that make it clearer, do you think, to a developer? Do you think some of these APIs could be listed in more than one category?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
then you can maybe use the 12-factor app and use that as categories, or Sam Newman also categorized microservices and use that as categories.
I think the challenge here is to actually find the right categories, and then you can match them. You can have like and then versus n mapping, right? So you have n specs that can match with n categories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the one thing that I think is so awesome with current update of the main page of MicroProfile is that we don't need to overcomplicate ourselves. We know that we need to make the digestion of the APIs, currently 12, a little bit easier. And Emily, that is a +1. It has been a +1 for +2 years. But what I'm saying is there is no need for us to rush. As David mentioned, we can do so later. If we are complicating ourselves to push the updates or upgrades to main page, then we should just quit altogether trying to update it because we are overcomplicating and adding that it shouldn't be there. Can we simplify what we have and just move forward and adjust it later? Because it does matter.
Well, can I bring up one thing too, is this is a homepage, so I don't know how much of a resource this is gonna be, if not more than introducing people to it and giving them a quick way into seeing something they're interested in. So I want to remind people too that, you know, even if it's not perfect, it's still most likely targeting what I understood from previous conversations, newer MicroProfile people looking to understand more and get more information. So you know, keeping it like not simple, but if it's not perfect with the categories, they'll still learn it. They'll still understand as it goes on, as they dive deeper into the content. I don't know if you'll be able to get everything perfect and explain everything off a small image on the homepage.
Yeah.
My thought process, and forgive me, you guys know I'm not an engineer, but I like the bottom one because in that it's more elegant. However, I think the top one is more descriptive and easier to digest. And you know, it's that whole kind of small words, big pictures thing when you're trying to educate people, right? Give them, you know, it's like community building. You've got to make it super easy for people to do anything. And then you have their attention for longer. So if there's a way to expand the categories without there being too many of them, my thought process is that the top images, and you know, to Ryan's point, this is a homepage. So capture people's attention, give them an easy kind of synapse link to something, and then let them dig deeper.
We still have work. We still have work to do once people click on any of these links, right? Whether we use the top or bottom, there's still a bunch of work to click on those, you know, n number of links and have a page there, right? Or where are we linking to?
It should link to the the release. For example, if you click on the config 1.4, it should link to the release, the config 1.4. You can see the PDF and you can see the HTML for the specification, basically. So in this way, they can find out straight away what's what features we support, we offer.
Okay. Do we have any kind of mock-ups on what are going to be on those pages? Because we wouldn't be able to go live with either of these until we had those pages.
Ryan?
Not yet.
Okay. What I recommend is that, well, just so I could, what I recommend is that we table the concept of whether we want the top or the bottom link, because we can't go live with either of them until we have a page for each of the things we're linking on. So let's spend some time working on that and come back to this topic. That would be my feedback, just so we can get something live as soon as possible. And we can come back and we can redo this page as many times as we want. In fact, it's a front page, so likely we should be redoing it once in a while. But what do people think about? I
agree. I mean, if we don't have any plan for how this web page is going to work, then there is not much point on discuss either one or the other.
Well, we can still discuss, but we definitely need to move forward in getting the pages these things are going to link to. Top or bottom, both have the same thing in common, is it has to link to a page that allows people to download the spec and get information. So we should start getting that together.
And you know, I am a +1 on that. You know what is interesting? Yesterday during the call, John and I +1 on that one too. We thought about simplification on this card. It means we add the MicroProfile 4.0 release. We must have wording like what is changed, because otherwise the search engine wouldn't help us and when you use ads or whatever else. But John mentioned something that will diminish human error by withdrawing or taking away the API's numbers. So it will just be the API and the colors instead of which release, because this will enable us to keep up with just the links that should be always the same. And if we adjust, we don't need to go in and change the number and follow that. With this, I mean, it's less debt for us to update this section and also less chances for error. Simplification. And this just goes into whatever we're going to do when we link. Should we, the question is, should we remove the versions of the updates under each API? And this is a question for you guys. I am a +1 on that one.
Yes.
Remove the what? The version?
The version on the URL name.
Only the colors will change. Only the colors will say blue is no change, and they will be listed on the left or right side as we have it here. But they will be, the numbers will be listed, and the main area where the categories are located will have no numbers, because that is scalable.
Yeah, so as I said yesterday, I think this number is important. So this is our numbering scheme. Otherwise, we announce, okay, MicroProfile for what is include. Oh yeah, include the same thing.
Yeah, but
So,
Emily, do you
Hold on,
think the left side?
I just want to point out one of these. I just want to point out another often missed thing. If we're going to update the graphics so we can make one square yellow or blue based upon whether it's updated, then Ryan still has to update the graphic every single time we release. So if we put version numbers in there or not, it's immaterial. They don't cost like $1 million, those two characters at the end. So
I agree.
Yeah, but I think we're discussing two different things. One thing is to have the version on the URL, and that's I think what Amelia was saying. Another thing is having the version in the page or on the graphic or on the design, whatever. The issue is when you have a version. Well, sometimes depends on the search engine. Usually Google is already way smart and is able to actually concatenate stuff. But in some weird situations, sometimes the search engine thinks that there are different pages. So if, for instance, you have a page which is mpconfig 1.4 and mpconfig 2.0, it will have less rating than if you have a web page that's only mpconfig, right? Because it thinks like two different pages and then splits the rating instead of aggregating the rating on the same page. But there are like techniques to be able to figure that out, but it's way easier if you just work with simple links instead of having links which have version numbers or dates or something like that.
well, let me ask you a question. So if we come out with a web page that says Jakarta, MicroProfile 3.3, you know, or let's say we did 3.2 and it had all the information about 3.2, including the versions. What's going to happen to that page when we release 3.3? Are we just going to delete it?
No, you don't have to delete it. What you can do is you may have a version 3.3, right? And that will be like history, but you'll have the latest release will always point to unversion URL, right? So
Okay.
it will always be on the latest version, and it'll be always the update version, right? Because that's the one that you want to have more rating on search engine, right?
That's fine. So as long as we're keeping the old ones there, I'm happy. I don't see a reason to delete
So,
it.
right. So
I'm checked
there's
out.
a,
We got 1 minute.
Yeah, we have 1 minute.
All right, Emily, you take the last comment.
right. So however, there's a problem with the URL. If you just like do the releases, and it will show up the latest like release. And let's say, okay, 4.0 is out, and then it's in the spec, for example, config might create another release, but that release is after 4.0 has been released and not in 4.0, and this is really confusing. And you pointed to that release, however, that is not included in the MicroProfile 4.0. So I prefer you have this, this is the number, and then is the URL directly point to actually the config 1.4 panel. Is nothing about RC, nothing about M1, because you could create like a config 1.5, but it's not in the MicroProfile 3.3, and then it's confusing.
You know, Emily, and I get it. And I love the conversation because it makes us wonder why. However, when we think about something that Ryan referred to, and we have, give me 30 seconds. The main page is just to bring users and contributors to understand the project itself. It's not a vast area where you will learn the world of MicroProfile. If we assume that we need to add every detail, then we are in the wrong path. And that is not scalable in the long term. So I say, let's move this call to the next community call and to the next marketing call. Please, everyone, use the Git to understand the inventory of what currently is, what is being removed. Everyone's feedback is welcome, because we can disagree to agree and respect each other's options, and then move forward to whatever is less complicated, right? Roberto,
Okay, yeah.
we're done.
Yeah, okay, so let's keep the discussion offline. We can do it on that GitHub issue that's linked on the Google Doc, and of course we can. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say I do want to say that every week we should roll something out. It's okay for us to have conversations about perfection, but we don't want to spend the next month just talking about pictures. Ideally, we're rolling out some change weekly, and every time we get together, we should force ourselves to agree on something so that way Ryan can be rolling out this work.
Well, I added a comment on the Google Drive. I think the next step is just to have the mockups for the individual spec pages. I think that's the most pressing issue right now. And after that is done, then we can have a decision on how to move forward.
We could roll out one of those two charts right now, just there wouldn't be any links.
Links are kind of useful, but it's up to you guys. I can even do a generic version with hotspots on them that might have links. Oh, but we don't have anywhere to drive it. So
that's what I'm saying. But you know, you could at least put the picture up.
Yeah.
You know, and then in the future, when we have something for it to link to, we could add the links in.
Yeah, simplification. We started these conversations, and it's going to be 1.5 months. The forum has gotten the email saying this is going to be tagged today. Let's move forward.
Yeah, but I want to be very conscious of the fact that progress helps keep these things going, and endlessly talking about moving things in different categories with nothing hitting the website will demotivate everybody.
Correct.
The best way to keep things going is to force ourselves to roll something out small every time we get together, even if it's a small thing.
Well, in that case, everyone agrees. I'll propose for Ryan to move forward with the big picture, because that's the one that we already know, and he doesn't have gonna have too much work on that, as far as you told us.
Yes.
And then you can evolve on. It can be it that way. I can evolve to the other one, and you can work on the prototypes for individual pages for specs.
Any disagreement there?
Fine with me.
He uses a MicroProfile presentation. We have plus 7 pages.
Your thoughts?
Sorry, who are you asking for?
You?
Oh, me. I think it's good to move forward. Yeah.
All right.
So it's making some progress, and then we can, yeah, add more improvement.
Sound great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, so moving on with the working group discussion. So now we have our version 6 of the charter, and there are still a few comments over here that needs to be addressed. Let's start to have a look into this. So one of the things that we were discussing a couple of weeks ago was regarding the community vote. And so let's see over here. So we actually have a couple of comments from Paul, Buck, and
I think Roberto, that's kind of auto date already.
Yeah, I think that's
so for
trying to figure out if that was okay.
Right. Do you mind I have a quick kind
Sure.
of recap? So for the committer election, etc., I took the action to send an email to Paul back. So basically, I asked Paul about this committer kind of membership and etc. So what we have here, can you move a little bit up about the statement about committer? Where is the committer? In the committer membership. So here, yeah. So the committer membership is still not the committer membership. So anyway, so for committer membership, so we can use what Jakarta EE used for the committer membership, and we have two options. One is kind of we use what Jakarta EE has done, basically run a formal election for elect the committer, and then that committer just vote based on his or her knowledge and etc. to do the vote. This is the option one. The option two is we have the proxy kind of the committer. So that committer doesn't voice his own or her own opinion. He will gather the committer community and for a vote. And then he or she will be a proxy vote. So if you go to the minutes, if you go to the live Hangout minutes, so I added a link on the agenda. So that's the kind of Paul replied. So he said, so both options are okay. So it's so option one, basically we do a formal kind of vote elect a committer is preferred, and also Eclipse Foundation. Can you scroll down a little bit? Yeah.
Sorry, that was a lot of text over there.
So basically, he prefers the. Can you go down a little bit? Yeah, the Paul's comment. So he prefers the option A. He said the Eclipse Foundation can run the election for us. However, I ask a question is kind of, that's kind of is quite formal. What if we run our own election? He said that's okay as well. So now the question for this group, for our community is, which option do we want to go? Do we want to do kind of formal election, so elect a committer, or we do the option two, basically we kind of randomly choose somebody, but that somebody is kind of proxy.
Yeah, so hold on, just
go ahead.
The concept, what we discussed last week is there was a strong preference for the person who is the community representative to be a proxy, such that you do have to vote the community's will, because that's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
And then, and that we would put in the charter that that vote is a proxied vote, but how we elect the person, we would leave that out of the charter so that we could try different things. So
Correct.
we could try having an election ourselves. We could even make a list and, you know, of few people and rotate them, you know, quarterly. We could even say the first community member vote, we'll put their name down as the proxy. There's a lot of ways we could do it, but ultimately we all seem to agree that we do want the proxy.
And when we were talking, yeah.
Yeah, do other people have thoughts? Maybe.
Well, if you ask me, okay, for the proxy vote, I can also see that as a good option. But if it's just as a proxy vote, then probably it's not worth all the elections, because it doesn't matter who actually is there the representative, because it is just a vote from the community. So
yes.
Whatever thing we can come up with, rotating list, a voluntary basis or whatever, suits me, I guess.
Me too.
And it doesn't need to have that formal election, etc., because it is from the community, a proxy vote.
Right.
And Rudy, you nailed it. One of the coolest things about the conversation from last week, and Emily, thank you you were PTO and you totally owned it right now with the tracing, which is awesome. One of the coolest things about the proxy is that the proxy there will be 2 committers, and because there are vacations, so if one is not available for a vote, and the votes are the part that Scott brought into attention. We discussed that section, but then because there are only a few votes that will require the steering committee to vote, and that takes about 2 weeks, there will be no vote that goes like super fast, right? And that is the part that we need to add into the charter to make sure that Scott's concerns are addressed. He is correct on stating, and Scott, are you here? Because yep. you brought the question about, but when will the proxy be able to gather and protect the vote of the community, the contributors or committers? And then we said, it's rare when the committee will have to vote, and we need to write it up. So Scott, do you want to refresh us on that? Because that is the part that we didn't tackle because we ran out of time.
Yeah, and I was, before that comes, there is a spot in the charter where it is mentioned, and we should expand it to make sure we're all comfortable. So if you want to look where there is the highlighted yellow text that has the most comments, there you go, past it. Last bullet there says the specification process votes and votes to amend the charter would fall under this process. It's implied that the other ones, we would like to use the Eclipse development process and therefore do not have to follow this voting pattern. It would just be community votes. So we could potentially write that down. Scott, does that address what you were thinking about the tail end of last week?
Right, that's how we were concluding, is that we needed to differentiate, because the example I gave was more of a general participation that was happening in the Jakarta EE platform, where we needed to make a decision and we just had an ad hoc vote. So it's those type of votes that cannot run under this process. But it's correct that the specification and steering committee votes can adhere to a stricter thing because they have the elongated timelines over which the vote has to run.
Yeah.
And Scott, are you able right now to, because you are an editor in the document, can you suggest there, just what you said, but simplify it into this section? Because if you ask for it, we realize that it needs clarification. Can you own this task for review?
Sure.
Awesome. Moving on. What else is in this part that we haven't
Should we get some language that we like here, by the way, just before we move on to off that topic? Scott, if you want to write a sentence at the end of that bullet there, that'd be great.
Yeah, Scott, we're waiting for you. It is now.
I'm not waiting for him, but I think
this is async.
Okay.
So it's for this proxy vote, and we don't need to write this person. We don't need to like put this person's name,
No,
like on the kind of working group charter, right?
nope.
No,
No, they would be.
So the other thing, what I'm thinking, for example, this is the kind of committee member, just like proxy. This probably is a minor issue. Does it make more sense if this we choose, for example, is there's a majority plus one, we just choose the proxy from the plus one voters, right? Otherwise, the candle is a bit. If someone votes minus one, and then it's like, okay, you act as a proxy vote, you vote for plus one.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. So I think those are the kind of things we want to leave ourselves the freedom to adjust the rules and on how the person becomes the proxy. And I think in the charter, we just need to simply say clearly that that vote is a proxy vote. You're not voting your own desires individually.
Okay.
And then, you know, we want it in the charter so that if there's a departure from that, it requires a charter update, and that requires the big vote, right? How that person becomes the proxy, we want that to not be riddled in big votes. We want to be able to just experiment.
Are we sure? Are we sure that the proxy vote will only have that responsibility and won't have any other additional responsibility that we're not looking at?
It is. It fits with full reply. It covers everything we wanted to know, because it allows us to choose two options. And the one with the proxy makes it so the community is still responsible to understand that their vote matters and is represented fully by the proxies, because there would be two each time. And my recommendation while we try on this, because we will need the proxies ready before the charter goes live, that means before the working group live, we choose the first one and the last one listed under the MicroProfile committers and just move forward. Because we don't have the time to vote, and I don't think this requires a vote. This is simple. It brings a flattened structure when it really is irrelevant who it is. This person is speaking on behalf of the community for legal reasons. Moving on. There will be no entitlement that the person is superior, because that is exactly what MicroProfile has protected for the last +4 years. No one here is above the law. Everyone here is unequal. And moving forward, this will continue to be the case, right? So the practice works beautiful to what MicroProfile is meant to continue to do under the working group.
Who's Anonymous Mink? Is that you, Scott?
Yeah, I just added a.
Yeah. You're duplicating that second bullet. You read the bullet under your bullet. It says it says the same opening. But we don't use steering committee votes because just so it's very clear what is a steering committee vote. So we had specification process votes and votes to amend the charter.
Okay.
Would be steering committee votes. All other votes would be following the Eclipse development process, I think is a good way to say that. Here, can we link, does someone have a link to this charter here in the meeting, in the chat?
It isn't, oh, it isn't the agenda.
Give me a sec. I'll go to the chat when I'm share screen.
Roberto, while you go to that, can you do resolved pullbacks comments?
I'm not sure if I have permissions for this.
Oh, okay, I do.
I don't know, but resolving is the good thing to do.
Let's wait.
I rather have. I think John prefers for him to resolve things, because then he doesn't know what was discussed or not. So let him resolve things first. The link is on the chat.
And just a reminder that the charter still has 5 editors listed in the charter. We still keep it with 5. Sometimes we decide, oh, it's ready, but it's not ready given the feedback. So I imagine that after this time, we will submit it once again for Eclipse Foundation approval. And if it goes through, then we can start working on the agreement for MicroProfile, you know, the participant agreement, which we can use a bunch of other working groups contracts to get that out. We definitely want to minimize legal. Legal is going to be horrible, but we don't have to start from scratch. So FYI to everyone that we keep the current editing process, as Roberto nicely reminded us.
Hey everyone, I finally made it back.
Oh, we were talking about you.
Hey Scott.
Hey John.
What do you think
Welcome.
what do you think about this sentence? And then you can change this bullet to basically be that it must be a proxy vote. Oh, it is. It's right here. There's the proxy right there. Scott, are you still there? Am I on mute?
No, you're not.
Okay.
I hear you.
Maybe he's on mute.
We were talking about codifying some of the things that we talked about at the tail end of last meeting, John, which was the real John Klingon. Nice.
Well, I'm recording off the other one, so.
Which was to specify a little bit more clearly that we do intend to use the Eclipse development process for the majority of our votes and therefore do not need proxies or corporate votes or anything of that sort. It's simply specificate as required by specification process, budget votes to amend the charter would be the things that we anticipate falling under a steering committee vote.
Okay, yeah, and I plan to go back and listen to the recording and kind of catch up to date, but yeah, hopefully that's sufficient. Still, from an Eclipse Foundation perspective.
Yep.
You know, the major stuff is covered by the proxy.
Yeah. And John, while Scott and David work on this, Roberto, can you lower? There is one side. Kevin is in PTO today, but there is one side here. Committer elections. So committers were re-added at the beginning of the month or last. I can't even remember. Committers are members. So when we talk about the elections, we added this orange pink color, and we had to adjust corporate and committer members. We need to tackle this section. So
what is
everyone,
that last bullet attempting to stay?
Exactly, I do not know. Now I do not know because before this, we didn't have. I added this, I added committer elections. I said committers cannot transfer the committers.
I don't think we want the concept of committer and election to be formally in the charter. As we mentioned, maybe we should just leave that out so we can use whatever rules that we want and evolve them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation would be to strike that.
Yes, so this is what we agreed, but we haven't deleted it. So before that conversation happened, this was added, but now we need to delete it. So I'm saying, can we resolve this because we don't need it anymore?
So
and it's
I agree. And just because we have 7 minutes left, I would like us to have some discussion. We really need to wrap up this charter this month such that we could actually be in a position, if we got it approved, to start the working group. Does anybody disagree with that?
No.
Nope.
So let's make sure that we're not, let's yank out anything controversial and try to get this thing across the finish line.
This last area is the last one, and we will remove it, and that makes it a new charter. There will be version 7 to be sent to Eclipse for review, and it can be done today.
If you have a quick look into the document, so we'll see that the only comments that we have are the ones that you, David, and Scott are working right now. And then there was this area about the committee elections that we're gonna take this out.
Yank it.
Yes.
And there's still here one comment.
That one is a strike. Yeah, we will not clarify it. It's okay. So it's also a strike.
And then there is these the participation fees, and that's it. So those are the open issues right now.
So there's not many open issues. I mean, also do you think it's feasible? I can even would even want to challenge to get this submitted by the end of this week, like beginning of next week. Is that something we should try?
What do you mean?
Go, John.
Well, I was going to recommend that we try and finalize it during the working group call next Tuesday.
Right.
Right. Put in any last edits. Provide, just because it's a working group call, right? It's maybe a good ending point. Provide a couple of days for those that couldn't attend the working group call to provide any last minute feedback, and then submit maybe by the end of next week.
I was thinking we will do it after today, maybe tomorrow, but I didn't see the Kevin's additions.
Well, most likely, we are on August, which usually it's like a slow month. A lot of people are going on PTO. So are we gonna really gain something by submitting either this week or next week? Because things are gonna be slow anyway.
Could we get Paul's feedback on our concept of the proxy committer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we can just point him to. I mean, I can send him off an email and point him to this and any conversation that we have going on in the group.
Maybe we could ask for some sort of informal review, so that way by next Tuesday we could address any final concerns and close it completely.
Yeah,
I would recommend that you do it this week, because Paul will be out on vacation from next week.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so that's a good. Thank you, Eva. So
Good night, Ivan.
So basically, the for this committer one, since I started the conversation, shall I follow up? Just to say, we discussed in our live hangout. This is kind of the can you go here? This is kind of the sentence that we have agreed, and ask him for any further feedback, or we can send this proposal. I mean, kind of the separate thing, and then for him to review in one go. So what kind of option do you guys want to take?
I am for sending the entire agreement for a review.
Okay. Okay, that's good. I think we should send as Paul is out next week. I think it's good to send as soon as possible this week, and then.
So what's unclear to me, because I apologize for kind of being dual booked here, but I see lots of comments. It looks like some of them can be resolved. I can go back and listen to this, but will that provide me enough context to go through and remove most of these comments?
Yes, John. I think you will resolve most of them. I almost asked Roberto to do them, but he was like, no, I think, and I was like, yeah, John does this. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want to remove anything because we know that you're being the gatekeeper of the charter, so we wanted to make sure that nothing was going to get removed without you seeing it first.
Yes.
But yeah, so
I'm the gatekeeper and Kevin's the keymaster.
yeah. Good Ghostbusters
Sorry,
reference.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but regardless, so with David and Scott discussion, I think this one can be resolved. This one we already agreed that this should be removed, so this one can be get out of the way as well. Amelia also said that this one can be resolved as well.
Rejected.
So I'll just do it straight away. And there's this one that Kevin added about participation fees. I think that's the only one that we haven't really got to and discussed.
I have a quick comment, and I know we're right at 3, but do we need to state in this when these fees need to be paid for? I mean, do they need to be actually paid before this entity becomes a member of the working group? I mean, I only say that because in some organizations, getting paid can take 6 months.
So let me go in this because we were supposed to talk about the draft of the budget for MicroProfile, which I already put into place and is in the agenda. We will bring that because it's added there as a fiscal year for MicroProfile. We can choose any month that it starts the 12 months. And in that draft,
Is that the case? Are you certain that I don't think that we can pick a fiscal calendar year for our working group. I do believe that we're probably constrained by by whatever accounting method the Eclipse Foundation itself uses, which I believe
yes, you're correct.
Not fiscal.
I'll probably ask you in a different way. So after the working group is created, when do corporation have to pay the fees, and how much time they have to pay the fees?
So I'm probably not the person to respond, but the people, I don't know the proper people here. I would simply say that for Jakarta E, I know we did have to have our budget start on January 1st and end on 31st. Also, when we joined the Eclipse Foundation, we joined mid-year, and our fees were prorated so that they terminated on the exact same date that was predetermined. And so most likely what's going to happen is that any fees that are necessary to be paid in 2020 will have to clear in 2020, but also most likely they'll be prorated. Or you won't be paying an entire year. And then that means that January 1st, there's a new check for the full year that has to be sent. Hold on, go ahead, Vince.
The question is, I mean, that's great. However, for the sake of argument, if somebody says we want to join this working group and it's a week before a vote or 2 weeks, but it takes them 3 or 4 months to pay, should they be allowed to vote before they're paid? That's just it's a point of order, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
No,
that would be a question for the Eclipse Foundation, I think.
Vince, can you send it to the forum and add Paul to that question, because it's excellent. For the draft that you will see in the agenda, I did add January 1st to December 31st using the past that we know from Jakarta and other working groups that always start on January 1st and end on December 31st. When I said it's likely we can choose is because Eclipse every project always says the payments, the fees will use the Eclipse Foundation accounting method. So everything is ruled by that. And the dates are January 1st to December 31st. But I'm not sure the fact.
Just to let everyone know, we are a few minutes off.
We should,
not sure if you want to continue a couple extra minutes or she'll stop here.
Okay, I am going to stop the recording if I can figure out how. It's on my cell phone.
Just right out of the window.